I love comic books, but I am not loving this hiatus. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I am going to open up 3 orders of comic books because I am literally running out of patience and I'm kind of losing it. I am used to allowing myself to buy and acquire comic books. Part of it is it's sort of the thrill of the hunt and the chase of books, and I allow myself to participate in it where my budget permits and when I'm in the correct mood to really think about what types of comics I'd like to acquire, invest in, think about pressing and cleaning and so forth. And I have purposefully put myself on a break for the last probably 4 to 6 weeks. And I've done this for a number of reasons. I wanted to see if I could catch up in a lot of my older orders that I had placed but never opened. And again, this is where some of the psychology of being a collector comes into play, where I was really more satisfied with making the purchase and not as excited to actually unbox the comics and deal with them. And so that was part of what I wanted to really understand about myself as a collector, to figure out, where am I buying books and how am I buying them? Who am I getting them from? What types of quality and condition am I receiving the books in? Are these books to read? Are they books to file away? Are they for pre-screens? Are they to clean and press? How do I want to keep all of this organized? And I think by taking the break, it really gave me an opportunity to think about how I'm collecting and what I want to do going forward here, as we're all experiencing the evolving and changing comic book market. And while I'm still catching up on past orders, and in fact, I'm going to open 3 here in this video of books that I purchased back in November, one of the last few Black Friday sales that I participated in, and also a couple of pre-orders where I got some incentive ratios, and I'm really excited to see kind of what condition those are in. So I will get to the unboxing, but I really think at this point, what I'm trying to determine is really, what did I learn from taking a break from buying, and what am I going to do differently? And I definitely feel like it's given me an appreciation, certainly for the collection and the comics that I do have. But if I'm not spending my time hunting and chasing and researching what books to buy, what did I do with my time? And I certainly spent a good chunk of that getting back into pressing and cleaning. I've got a couple of books that I'm very excited about. And what I'm trying to do is get to a point where I can send about 6 to 8 books off to CGC to kind of really ultimately put my skills to the test. So I'm excited about that, and I'm happy that I got back into it. It took some experimentation, some failure. I tried to record some of it, but I was frankly just quite embarrassed by how some of the books turned out. But I did learn along the way. I've altered my methods, and I hope to put together a better video in the future that really shows what specific methods I'm using now and the type of books that I am pressing and cleaning. And I've experimented with some additional tools and materials, and they didn't work out. I ended up ruining a few books there, and I hope to talk about that as well. So I definitely got back into pressing and cleaning a little bit. But the other thing I learned is really how I'm approaching new comic book purchases, and I'm talking about brand new books. And I went from a full pull box subscription model to then sort of buying titles that I like, to now really what I'm thinking is I'm probably going to try and limit myself to maybe 3 to 5 books a week and pick up 2 or 3 copies of each and just leave it at that. I always feel like it's not so much that I'm trying to select or buy or collect every single book. I have been able to become more selective when it comes to new comic books. And I think some of it has to do with just how I'm kind of down on the MCU, and I don't know what's going on with the DCEU or the DCU. And part of that disappointment has really kind of added some negativity to the hobby for me personally. And it's one thing I've tried to do as well, is I've really tried to understand my attachment to seeing these comic book characters come to life in live action, and just how I feel about that in terms of how I approach comic book collecting. What really kind of got me back into collecting was the fact that I really felt like the MCU was really going strong. So it was around Infinity War Endgame, that sort of time period where I feel like at this point it's kind of peak MCU. And that's when I was really, really interested in getting back into comics. And now I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to separate those feelings, and I'm trying to separate the emotions, and I'm trying to just find some enjoyment in sort of the entertainment aspect of not just comic book properties, but also the Star Wars universe and other things that are tied to comic books, and not trying to feel so super attached where if there's live action, then the comic book needs to be had at all costs, or if there's a comic book and it becomes live action, I need to go and really enjoy it. I have to. That's part of what I see is there's some sort of speculation and investment in a property or a specific comic book, and then even if the live action does not really represent the book, then we're sort of forced to say that we like it just because we feel like if we don't like it, it's going to hurt the value, or it's going to hurt something to with the comic book itself. And I think part of the hiatus for me was really thinking about that and really going forward, keeping them separate. And I would constantly unbox comics and have many videos where I've made the comment like, well, this character could show up in a future show. And I kept getting caught up in it. And I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to treat them as really separate mediums and enjoy them for what they are. And the other thing I did on the hiatus, I read more. I actually read more, and I read comics digitally. I'm not really cracking physical copies anymore. I'm a collector and I guess you could say like a perfectionist when it comes to condition. Not that I'm only collecting books in perfect condition, but I'm so worried about my own collection, trying to keep them in high grade, and don't often grab a stack of new books and read them and then put them in my collection and grade them. I'm typically getting books, grade them, basically seal them up, get them professionally graded, slabbed, and so forth, but then I will read digitally. And what I found was I was reading probably 3 or 4 times as much. And again, I think it was just freeing my mind from the obsession and the research to try and hunt down a book and figure out where it is, where I actually just thought about comics. And by thinking about collecting and my history with the hobby, I ended up going back and finding some series and some titles to read or reread. An example is I went back to the beginning of the John Byrne Fantastic Four run and started reading through that and really enjoyed it. It was got off to a little bit of a slow start, but once it got going, it was very enjoyable. And it really kind of took me back to when I was a kid and I was reading books and I was looking and appreciating at the comic book art and not really understanding the artist himself or herself, where I didn't know. I kind of knew the name, but there was imagery that was recognizable as a child. And now it's different, where I certainly can recognize a John Byrne face that he draws, but just the art of the storytelling and page layouts and other things where I can just appreciate it a lot more now. So some of the stories, I remember kind of one-off issues, but reading them consistently now, one issue after another, has also been kind of fun and interesting. So I've really, really liked that. So I don't really know what to do next as far as what am I going to do first? When does this hiatus end? What am I going to buy? What am I interested in? I think that I'm still going to give it a little bit more time. I don't necessarily have a specific deadline where I'm going to start buying again. And what will I buy first? I don't quite know yet. But through this, I have, I think, developed some patience where I've seen some books go up for sale. I see some books online that I would like to acquire that I think are great value, that have a lot of potential if I were to get them graded, and so on, just like I would at any other time. But the comic books are there. They're still there. So a book that I saw a few weeks ago is still for sale at the same price. It's there. I used to kind of panic where I would be up early in the morning and I'd get a Midtown wish list alert and I'd run into my computer and find it and place an order because I was so afraid that it was going to be bought and I'd never be able to get it again at that price. And I've moved on from that feeling. It's not as much of a priority or an obsession anymore for me. I know that I've done a really, really nice job with my collection. I know that I have been able to find great books, and I still have a lot of great books to open, and I'm going to show you some of those books now that I picked up. And if I miss out on books, I have plenty here to go through. And it doesn't really matter what the size of your collection is. You could have 10 comic books or 10,000. For me at this point, it really is appreciating the collection that you have. And I think for me, it's really more about what you can do with your collection, no matter what the size, in terms of certainly reading it, grading it, potentially upgrading it, finding other side stories to kind of complement it, finding great ways to display it, maybe drawing, sketching from one of the pages that you like. There's so many different ways to appreciate the hobby, and I think that that's what has really kind of opened my mind. I really shut off the voices in my head around collecting and consuming, and I've slowed down and really started to be inspired and visualize a lot of what's around me in the hobby. And I've become more organized in that way in terms of how I think about comic books, but also how I physically am collecting them. So I want to get to this unboxing of these 3 orders that I placed, where I took advantage of another online store's sale, and then a couple of orders where I placed a pre-order of some high ratio incentives that I'm really excited about, and I'm hoping they're in tip-top shape and in great condition. So let's get to it. Okay, so here's what I've got for you. I have 3 orders that I want to open up. The first order will be from Rabbit Comics, and it is a primarily like a online store exclusive type of store. And it was another one of those sort of buy so many, get so many free that I placed towards the end of November 2022, around Black Friday. And then I've got an order from Things from Another World, where I've got one high ratio incentive that I pre-ordered, and then one other high ratio incentive from ComicTraders. So I wanted to share these books with you and maybe even take a peek at the condition to see how they turned out. So let's get to the unboxing of these 3 orders. All right, here we go. The first order I'm going to go through is the order from Rabbit Comics. So let me explain kind of how this worked. With Rabbit Comics, they had a feature called Build Your Box, and you could kind of put together your own, not a mystery box, obviously you know what you're doing, but you're putting your own exclusive bundle together. And then depending on how many books you added to the bundle, you got a particular discount. So what I ended up doing is I bought a total of 7 comic books. I picked up 2 copies of one book, and then my sort of build a bundle was 5 exclusives that were offered through Rabbit Comics. And I felt like by the time I checked out, I unlocked free shipping. I also was able to grab a gift card at the time. There was, I don't know, I don't remember if I had to go to their Instagram or there was some way to communicate with them. Maybe it was a newsletter, and I was able to get a $10 gift card as well. So I was trying to stack a lot of discounts and trying to find any way I could get a price break. So I was able to essentially get 7 store exclusives at what I thought was a pretty good deal, and it was free shipping. I got the Build-A-Box bundle, and then I used a gift card on top of that. So it was, to me, it was totally worthwhile to go ahead and execute the order in that way. But we're here to see the books, so let's get to it. And this store had several store exclusives from one of my favorite artists, Suspiria, and this is one of her covers for Chroma #1. So this is the Chroma #1 Suspiria store exclusive variant. I've had her commission a number of pieces for me, so I always like to be on the lookout for her books as well. And then I picked up the 2-pack of Briar #1, and this is the Zoe Lachi variant, and it's the full art version of Briar #1, and there were, I think, limited edition exclusives with a couple of different color tones. This one is more of like a beige or a tan, and this one's kind of got a red or pink tone to it. Briar was one of those stories that I ended up picking up quite a few books and investing in, and this was one of the last variant sets that I needed to acquire, and found a good deal on Rabbit Comics and got them there. And I liked it so much, I got 2 sets. so no real big mystery there or anything to add other than, like I said, I thought I got a really good deal on them, and they look to be in really, really great shape here. Just kind of eyeballing the condition These are nice too. I believe these kind of have a matte card, like a thin cardstock finish on these. So unless there's something really, really glaring or like a massive dent on the spine, they should be good to go and be hopefully 9.6 or 9.8 candidates. And then the last two books are Suspiria variants, and this is the Suspiria variant for Radiant Pink #1. It's a 5-issue limited series based on the Radiant Black title from Image Comics, and there's been some spin-offs. And I remember when I first got into the series, there was kind of a promise that the whole like Radiant universe is going to be kind of more expansive than a typical independent storyline. And again, just kind of a combination here. Great deal on a store exclusive. One of my favorite artists, and the fact that it's all based on a story and universe that I collect. So I couldn't pass that up. So these were the books that I got from Rabbit Comics. And I'll show you what I paid for these and kind of what the discount was overall, and just kind of applying my overall price to all of the books and kind of distributing it evenly so that you can kind of see what I paid for each one. But these sort of like full art variants, they're typically the ones you would get in a set that would cost about anywhere from $15 to $30 each. And I got them for a lot less than that. So I'm curious to see from like a fair market value perspective if the books have retained any of the value. But I think, as we've all kind of discussed before in the past with store exclusives, they really should just be books that you want to acquire. It's very rare that a store exclusive really kind of jump in tremendous value or be highly sought after. There's certainly many, many cases of that, but in sort of my explanation or justification for the order, I really wanted to support Rabbit Comics, Suspiria, and then also the story Briar that I got into. Okay, now the other two, let's see. Let's go with this one next. This is from ComicTraders, another title that I got into pretty heavily, and you'll see right here as I show you the book, is Scarlet Witch. And this is Scarlet Witch #2. And this is a 1 in 25 retailer incentive variant with cover art by Alex Maleev. Alex Maleev is really fantastic. His style, to me, it certainly has a painted style, and it certainly has hints of Bill Sienkiewicz, like certainly just sort of the character layout, the roughness of it, the painted style. But I think Maleev's figures are a bit more traditional too, so it really kind of blends the best of both worlds. But I was all over Scarlet Witch #1 and trying to get as many variants and things as I could. And then, lo and behold, I saw Maleev's Scarlet Witch #2, and I hunted this down and I waited for it and finally found it on ComicTraders. ComicTraders is based in Canada, so I had to pay a little bit extra for shipping. But for me, when I was starting to compare like my options to pre-order this at some other places that I would typically pre-order from, plus looking at eBay pre-orders, it actually made more financial sense just to pay a few extra dollars to get this from Canada. So this is Scarlet Witch #2, and I'm going to go ahead and open this one up and take a look at the condition of this. I noticed something right on the edge of the book, and I don't know if it's artwork or something on the book itself, and I was very curious to check it out here. Yeah, right there. I don't know what that is. I believe that it is almost maroon or red in color, so I'm going to call that art on the cover, and it's just gorgeous. Now, the corner is a little soft, softer than I'd like it to be, but it's not, I usually say like that's acceptable. Like it's an acceptable corner. It's not perfect. You can see a little bit of the splitting there. Hopefully you can. So it's not great, but you can see on the back too, it's okay. Like it kind of disappears. The back cover has, I would say, the typical Marvel wrinkling. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. Spine really strong, held well together. I'd probably certainly include this in my next 9.8 pre-screen. So I'm going to set that aside. The corners, again, right there, I think it's acceptable. Not perfect, but well within range. So thank you, ComicTraders. The book looks great. I don't see any other spine damage at all. Really, really a gorgeous copy, and would love to add this to my already graded Scarlet Witch covers that I got back in my 9.8 pre-screen. I have some Maleev books, and I know he's had a lot of fantastic covers. I'm not saying this is his best, but one of my favorites that I own. I'm really, really happy with this one. So I'm going to get this in a bag and board before I damage it myself. All right, so I've got this in a bag and board. I'm using a full back, and then, gosh, it just looks so much nicer in my own bag and board, as your comics always do. They always look better in your own bags and boards, and gave it the 9.8 on the back there. So really, really happy. Just a stunning book. And that's Scarlet Witch, the retailer incentive copy of Scarlet Witch #2 by Alex Maleev. Okay, now the next book and the last book in this unboxing is going to be an order that I placed with Things from Another World. They've bubble wrapped and taped the heck out of this, but I could probably just slide the book out. Yeah, I want to be careful not to have the book catch on any of the bubbles there. All right, now to me, I've talked a lot about like covers of the year, books of the year. I have to see exactly when this book was released. I believe it was January 2023, so it's going to count towards sort of my nominations for cover of the year 2023. It got a lot of noise, and I'll explain a little bit of some of the negativity that it also drew. But the book is Sins of Sinister #1, and this is the 1 in 100 retailer incentive by Artgerm. I'm already checking it out for various reasons, but I absolutely want to make sure that the condition is solid. And you know, it's going to be tough. I'll take it out of the bag and board so we can look at it, but there's definitely some spine splitting here. But let me talk about the negativity of this type of variant, not necessarily this specific book or Artgerm or anything. It's when there is an additional multiplier when it's the same art. Now, this book with this art and the trade is open order. So you can pick up this book if you like the art, and if you're an Artgerm fan, you love Emma Frost, you can get this book, cover A, no problem, cover price. It's available everywhere right now. But then they take the same art, they remove the cover, and then make it a 1 in 25, 50, or 100. And a lot of times in these cases, there are collectors that get the cover A and they're very, very happy and satisfied with it. This specific cover for me could be one of Artgerm's finest, and I had to get it. And I want to look at the condition here, but that's sort of the risk here, is that, you know, only a certain type of collector, or a collector with the ability to find a book like this, and I can see one spine tick right in here, hard to see, but right there, just subtle enough. Could it still be a 9.8? I think it's going to come down to this corner right here. There's just enough of a little bit of a damage to that corner, almost like a tear, but it could be spine splitting. It could be allowable. I think I would still put it into a 9.8 pre-screen and take my chances because it's such a gorgeous book. And even in a 9.6, I think that the book would be worth having and displaying. But the theory with sort of the negativity around the value of a book like that is a 1 in 100 of a popular book. It is going to be hard to find, but is it going to retain its value in the long run when you have collectors that appreciate art and appreciate books and scarcity and covers? Yes, but if they can get a certain version of it, then those collectors are satisfied. And then there's a segment that really is a rare or alternate variant that is harder to find and scarce, chaser. And I think a little of both. But to me, this was just one of those where, okay, this is going to be in play for cover of the year. And while the trade version doesn't necessarily bother me, I had to have the full art version. To me, it's just absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. One of Artgerm's best covers, I think, ever, if not his best cover. But there are a lot of collectors when they see that, and there's a version, and then there's a retailer incentive that's just a slight, maybe it's a black and white, maybe it's just an alternate coloring, kind of like those Breyer books, that collectors would just kind of shy away from and just say, no, it's not different enough. It's not worth paying the 1 in 100 ratio price just to take a graphic off of it. So I totally get that. I totally understand it. And I think that there are books like that where you can look at data and say that those books don't hold their value. But as expensive as this was, and I still think this is a nice investment piece, I don't know if I really care. It's that good of a cover and that great for me personally. So I had to splurge and I had to get it. So let me get this book too in a bag and board before I further damage it. And then we'll go through the numbers. I'll show you what I paid for these and show how they're holding up now in the market as I compare what I paid for them against fair market value. All right, well, this is disappointing. There are no values for these books quite yet. They're still either too new or too exclusive to have reported values, either through cover price or any of the other online resources that I use. So I can just kind of briefly go over what I paid for these and kind of show you, just in general, what I was thinking at the time. And again, the Rabbit Comics order ended up being a total order of about $102. So what I did is I just divided that across the 7 books in the order. So each book cost me about $14.57 to acquire. And these books in other places were going for about 15 to 30 each. So I felt like this was a good deal. And again, just supporting the store and some of the artists and stories that I love. I don't mind doing that from time to time. And honestly, the big differentiator for me in this order, no tax, no shipping. So I was able to get that along with that $10 discount on top of that. The Scarlet Witch #2 from ComicTraders is, let's just say it's interesting. I ended up paying $20 to have that book shipped. I don't think I realized it at the time, and I think that it's only at 1 in 25. It is not a 1 in 50, and I ended up paying about $50, $54.90 to be exact, for that book. So I feel a little bit embarrassed on that one. Even more so now when I was looking up values, I actually found this book in a couple of places for around $30. So I think that if you are in the market for that book, you may be able to get it at auction or other places for less than 30, but I know of a couple of sources that you can just go buy it outright at 30, and I paid 50. I still like that book at 30. I don't like it at 50. I think it's too high, but if I can get it at ratio or pay a few dollars more for that, I still think that that particular book, especially by Malieve, and we have Malieve collectors, Scarlet Witch fans, I think that that book is going to hold up over the long run, kind of like the TFAW variant on issue 1. There's just going to be that interest in that artist and in that type of variant, in that type of book. So I do like it. And maybe even once my hiatus is over, I would go back and take a look at that book for $30. Now, the Sins of Sinister #1, the 100-copy Art Germ variant, I got that from Things from Another World for $99.99. I did have to pay $4.29 for shipping and handling, and I included the 30 cents I was charged to bag and board that book, and then $9.88 for tax. So all in all, $114.16 for that book. I feel like the way that the heat has picked up on that book, that $114.16 out the door for that book is a good buy, even if, well, and I said goodbye, I'm like goodbye money, but even if that sounds like a lot, what I did is I did a quick lookup on eBay, and I was able to see some recent sales of this book in a 9.8 and some books being sold in a 9.8. And I know list price does not mean sale price, like actual transactional sold price. I get that. But people are asking in the $500 to $650 range for that book. And if you say, well, it's not worth that much, if you had it in a 9.8, would you list it for $300 and sell? Probably not, because it would sell and someone would put that back online for $500. So I think that sometimes, unfortunately, in order to have some of these bigger books and to have some of the values that they're commanding, you do have to buy into it. But the risk there, it's just too high in general just to kind of blindly order, 1 in 25s, 50s, and 100s. That specific book for me was an absolute exception. Like the TFAW 1 in 100 I mentioned on Scarlet Witch one, sometimes you just see the book and you're just like, listen, I understand the audience here. I understand that there's going to be demand for this book, and the book is out there. You can buy it raw, but stores are charging double ratio for that book. So like the Scarlet Witch 2 Malieve, I did see the 1 in 100 Art Germ full art copy available, but it was around $200 raw. So people are charging double ratio, and then somewhere between 4 to 5x on a graded 9.8. Even a 9.6 I saw for a few $100s. So I think that I would probably send that book in on a pre-screen, and if it did get spit back out, probably just send it in with a standard submission and hope to get a 9.6 on it. Maybe even sell it raw. To me, that book is a keeper. It's something that I would like to have. For me, though, as kind of a cover of the year, I kind of have these different books that are sort of my nominated books of the year, kind of collected and displayed together. And to me, that book, along with Harley Quinn 24 and the Warren Lau Power Girl Action Comics cover, those are the three, I think, candidates right now for me for cover of the year. So I'm happy to have that one, even if it is raw. I'm not so concerned about getting a 9.8 in it as soon as possible, but just pointing out that that one does have some value. I was not able to get those raw book values from cover price. Typically, when you're dealing with the kind of store exclusives that I picked up from Rabbit Comics, those, I don't want to say those stores are so obscure, but there seems to be a percentage of those exclusives that just kind of fall off of cover price. So those are the three orders. Those are the books that I got. And I think that those orders are kind of an example of where I am starting to transition in the hobby, right? So if I could do it all over again, I probably would have definitely pre-ordered the Sins of Sinister one. I think no matter what my strategy was with collecting, either at the time or going forward, I'm going to want that book. The Scarlet Witch 2 Malieve, I think I did have a little FOMO on that one. And it was one of those, I saw it, and when I was doing my research as far as anywhere else it was being sold at, it was sold out or it was available for $50. That's where it was like, well, if it's sold out everywhere and it's being priced at $50 on a pre-order, then I could just get it. I don't know honestly what I was thinking. Of course, in hindsight, it's stinging now to see it available online for $30 or less. But that would have been one of those books that I would have just waited on just to see. And then if I didn't get it, it's fine. And then store exclusives are always going to be store exclusives. I don't know what to tell you. And I keep falling for it as well. But just going forward, it has to be just money that you're willing to spend on, I would say, something just like for entertainment's sake. Even if Briar or Chroma or Radiant Pink, even if they take off, let's say they're optioned, it's not like any of those books are $200 or $300. If you look at something like Something is Killing the Children that was recently not optioned, but it was sort of the option was updated to say, yes, it is a go still at Netflix, and there have been writers assigned, writers that were affiliated with other like fantasy horror genre shows also on Netflix. Where, yes, if you go back to the first issue and you find a store exclusive, maybe it's limited to 500, there's definite value there. But still, what's happening is that cover A is taking off. That's the one that everybody sees, they recognize, and this is what ends up happening, is that cover A comes out, then everybody runs to the exclusives, but then once the story and the characters and everything, it kind of takes a life of its own, everybody kind of goes back and they want cover A. So there are times where I find you want to buy a store exclusive, like I said, because you want to support a store, you want to support a story, you want to support an artist who's on the exclusive cover. And that's kind of what I did there. But I think definitely executing patience going forward is the name of the game, especially when it comes to exclusives. I think that's always been it, but I just have been ignoring it. And it's one of the things that I've learned from the hiatus. As you see exclusives get announced and they look great, you're excited. But then several months later, they're still there. And then after that, you're getting the buy 3, get 3 free option or some other kind of BOGO deal. And then it ends up being in a mystery box and on and on and on. And the cycle continues. So it's really, for me, about being way more selective and finding those books that you know in your heart and in your mind, when you're being honest with yourself, that this is the book that I want. This fits with my collecting habits and my strategy. I'm going to go all in on it, and I'm going to ignore the noise, ignore the hype, and just stay focused. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.